Hey folks, this is Mike Tango Whiskey coming at you with another video. It's the next day, so I got some sleep and I'm ready to make another video. It's Sunday. Today, this is going to be a response video to a gentleman who made a video in response to one of my videos. So a response video. A channel called Wasteland by Wednesday, a gentleman named Chris over there. Really great channel. It wasn't purely a response video, but it was on the same subject. So I watched it. I've watched it twice. I took some notes and I'm going to go through and kind of talk a little bit about the reasons I don't think we disagree as much as he thinks we do. And I think what he's describing is one side of the coin and what I'm describing is the other side of the coin. And I think that conversation is valuable for the prepping community because there's people in both camps, right? So I think it's important to talk about how we can relate to each other and how those ideas overlap. So that's what we're gonna do today. If you are one of my subscribers, I welcome you back. I thank you for your support. You guys know I love you like platonic strangers. And if you're new to the channel, this is the prepping channel for the 68%, the meaty part of that bell curve, like normies with live in the suburbs, work in the city. You know, we have jobs and kids and we go to soccer games, but we still want to be prepared for whatever may come. So that's where you've landed. So I hope you stay to watch the rest. Okay. So Wasteland by Wednesday. So I did a video called Prepper Bugout Fantasy, talking about the idea that is presented in most, I'll say most, because I watched 20 videos on bug out bags, and the tools and gear that were in those bags indicated to me that their plan was to walk into the woods to live if they had to bug out, okay? Now, I think that that is a silly fantasy for most people, okay? Now, at the beginning of that video, I did give some exceptions. I said, if you already have a crew, you already have a place like a second home, or you have a location, you have land, you have some place to go, bugging out is a good idea. In fact, that should be what you do. But if you don't, throwing on a backpack, thinking that you're gonna walk into the woods and survive and live on your own, with a spouse, with children, with relatives, and the way that list I just gave you, it gets sillier and sillier, okay? So that concept. So I did a video on that, and Chris was kind of responding to the idea of bugging in versus bugging out. And again, I think we're saying the same thing, Chris. I don't think we're disagreeing very much. We're just describing. It's like that analogy where two people are blindfolded and they're touching an elephant. You know, one's touching the trunk, one's touching the tail. I think that's what's happening. So I want to start by talking about Chris's channel. So when he was commenting on one of my videos, I went to his channel. He has a really great channel. I'm going to do my best to link it in the notes, but I am dubious about my capability of doing that because I don't know how to do that yet. So I want to show his channel. I hope this doesn't violate some sort of rule on YouTube. Wasteland by Wednesday. And the newest video he has is the response, kind of the pseudo response to my video. But he has some really great videos. And let me say this, from what I've watched, it seems like he is out there doing the thing. A lot of what I'm doing is just like pontificating in my garage. Some of this is guesswork, right? I'm imagining, these are thought experiments because I don't quite have the time and the resources to do the thing full blown yet, you know? That's one of the reasons I'm doing this channel, is to hopefully get to that spot. But he has some really great videos, some really great work on bugging out, bug out locations, and he's doing it in an environment that's really difficult. He's doing it in the Mojave Desert, which terrifies me. I hate the heat, Chris. I hate the heat. You can always put more clothes on, but you can only get so naked. I would just be in a loincloth walking around naked. No, I'm not, because I'm a ginger. I can't be naked in the sun, so I'm off topic. But a really great channel. Chris has a really great channel. I recommend you go, you subscribe, and watch some of his stuff because he kind of talks like me too, which is one of the reasons I think I like him. The way he explains and the way he articulates, it reminds me, it sounds very familiar to me, and I understand everything that he's saying. So it's great. It's really good stuff. So do we and let me say this too, Chris self-identifies as what he is calling a collapse prepper, okay? So this is far end of the scale. This is, I'll bring up my little chart here in a second. This is total collapse. This is TOTC, right? The end of the world as we know it. Total collapse of society. Everything changes from now on, okay? Think Book of Eli, think Planet of the Apes, think, some of these outbreak, movies, zombie apocalypse type thing. So Chris is a collapse prepper. So all of his content, most of what I've seen anyway, most of his content comes from that lens or that perspective, which is cool, which is great. Now it's not mine. You understand that I'm in the 68%. We're in the meaty part of that curve. So in my bell curve analogy, Chris is way out here. He is like, so 68% is the kind of the meaty part. The next standard deviation is like the 27% right here. And over here are the 5%ers. And then over here are like the point. Chris is probably somewhere over here, right? He has a group of people. They have a stocked and ready and organized retreat location. He's far into the curve, right? And I'll say this, that's where I would like to be. That's my goal. And I'll talk more about the 68% as we kind of go through Chris's video, but I'm not going to play it here. I watched it through a couple times and I took a bunch of notes. So I'm going to kind of go through these as we go. So number one, I don't think we disagree that much, Chris. I think we're describing the same thing, two sides of the same coin. He has a great channel. He identifies as a collapse prepper versus me. I'm more of a 68%er. Now he refers to it as a Tuesday, prepping for Tuesday. That's us. That's the 68%. Prepping for Wednesday is the analogy that they use. Some other people use this too. That's the like what happens after. So again, I think we're talking about two different spots on that scale. He also uses a phrase called traditional preppers. So it seems like he's putting me in that category of traditional preppers. And he gives some other examples of videos that have said bugging out is a bad idea. I don't know if I feel like I'm not a traditional prepper, but remember, Chris is further along on that scale. So to him, everybody short of that may be a traditional prepper where he's a collapse prepper, right? So I get that, but I do think that the message that I'm talking about and some of the other videos, he gave one about brass facts, one from Grunt Proof that talk about the bug out myth or the bug out fantasy. I don't think those are as abundant as the ones that are saying you should bug out. I think we are in the minority. Are we traditional? Maybe. That's kind of the label he gives us. I don't know if I agree with that label, but also let me say this too. My first instinct was to go through his video and find all the little things I disagreed with. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that because, like I said originally, I don't think we disagree as much as he thinks. And also, I don't know, that's just kind of cheap and gross. I want to talk more about the ways that we agree and the ways that I think we're saying the same thing, just in a slightly different way. So I'm not going to go through and say, I didn't say that, and this and this and this. I'm going to try my best not to do that. And the other premise, so his first premise is kind of that I'm a traditional prepper, and I'll take that label. But also that what we are saying is that during SHTF, or whatever you want to call it, he would call it collapse, that we're recommending that we bug in the city, that we stay in the city during a serious long-term SHTF scenario, okay? I will take the time to point out now that my video, very specifically, was about the idea of bugging out to the woods if you don't have someplace to go. I think that's a fantasy. I think it's harmful. I think it's silly, okay? So I don't know that I would say bugging in the city, I don't know if that's exactly what I would say, but yeah. He also refers to a group called, so this is kind of the premise of his case, is that real preppers, nobody is planning to do that. So my video was about, hey, bugging out to the woods to live. He goes, nobody who's a real prepper is planning to do that. That's probably true. I think where was I getting my idea? So what does he mean when he says real preppers? Probably some of the old school preppers who've been prepping for 20 or 30 years. Most of these folks have been planning for collapse for some time, like the Wesley Rawls group, right? The Redoubt, the Pacific Northwest kind of idea, old school preppers. They probably are not planning to walk into the woods to live. That's probably true. What Chris says is true. I think the video that I made was more in response to what I see on YouTube. Maybe not what is, and is that real? Is what we see on YouTube real? Probably not, right? I was just trying to produce content that was showing the other side of what we see already on YouTube. So I think he's right. I think he's right about this. Real preppers, however he's defining that, real preppers are not planning to do that. They already realize that that's probably a bad idea if you don't have anywhere to go. So I would agree with Chris on that. My response primarily was to YouTube preppers and what we see on YouTube right now. The other kind of premise that Chris puts forward is your home, like let's say in the suburbs or in the city, your home is not your castle. Like in the bug-in scenario, we build up our home with our gear and our supplies, and we are kind of fooling ourselves that it's a castle when it's going to be in hostile territory if SHTF, right? Or beyond that. I think he's right about that. His idea is, no, your home is where you're temporarily located, but you should be retreating to a castle. Your home is not your castle is your castle. I agree with this. Yes. Yeah, I think about that all the time. Like if a group of people large enough want to roam through a neighborhood and take what they want, that's going to happen. There's very little you can do against a violent, desperate mob. In fact, there's nothing you can do. Like how many people with how many defensive positions and how much time and how many rounds, you're going to get overrun, right? With enough time and determination, a big enough group of people will overwhelm almost every scenario. So I agree with him on this. I agree with him. You need a castle, and you need a castle most likely away from people, well-stocked, well-supplied. This castle concept, yes. It's my goal, Chris. I want to be there. I want a castle somewhere. Mojave Desert's good. I would think what would be even better. Sometimes I see like castles on an island off the coast of Scotland for sale for like $1 million or something. Like that's the place I want, right? He also does a great job. He gives a definition of bug out. And this is a key point because the way I defined bug out as I see it on YouTube is throw a backpack on and go survival camping in the woods. That's kind of the laissez-faire definition that we see on YouTube from preppers who are like, here's all the stuff I bought and here's the bag I put it all in and here's so when I have to walk to the woods. That's what I was countering. But Chris gives a really good definition. And you know what else I was impressed with is I don't think he's reading this. Like he's in the desert with a little tripod and he's like filming himself and he just says this definition. I think he was reading, I think he has it memorized and it's a really good definition. So let me share it. Bug out is this, real bug out. Not the bug out that Mike Tango Whiskey described, right? Real bug out. Bug out is planned and methodical retreat to an extremely isolated, pre-established location that has been fortified and stocked with supplies and made ready for self-sufficient living post-collapse in a post-collapse environment. Okay, that's great. That is a great definition. And I think it probably should be the definition, right? Like in my video, I was like, let's get rid of bug out and let's use bug over. I like his premise that bug out should stay. But if you mean this by bug out, this should be the goal of anybody who is prepping for real. Like I am a 68%er, but man, my mind goes to the 27%, to the 5%, to the 0.3%. My mind goes there all the time, and I find myself kind of coming back from the edge and settling down back into the 68%. But I'm with you, Chris. Like I see some of the stuff going on, and I'm like, me and my wife, every once in a while, we'll be laying in bed and we'll look at each other. We need land. Tomorrow, we need to go buy some land. You know, and we're having those conversations. And I feel like as a family, we're working towards that eventuality, a second home in a remote location. Yeah, that's the dream. But I love this definition because it does a really good job of of defining exactly what bug out should be. And this is what bug out should be. This is the best case scenario. This is what we see in some of the survivalist novels, the Wesley Rawls stuff, the retreat property, the bug out location. That's why that term exists, right? I think Chris says that too. So yes, that is a great definition. I love that definition. We should keep that definition. Now, Chris also talks a little bit about the idea of bugging in. And he goes, so I want to stop for a second and talk about this. So he says that bugging in, he thinks, comes from a rigid mindset, okay? A little bit of fear and denial of reality that collapse may be possible. I think he's right about that too. And let me explain that. I think he is right, but I want to stress, like, those of us in the 68%, I don't think we're in the 68%, although this might not be true, because we choose to be. I think most of us, if we could have that really great option of a castle somewhere, metaphorically, or actually like a real castle, that'd be dope too. I think we would. I don't think we're there yet. We haven't thought that through. We haven't planned it through. We haven't committed the resources and the time to making that happen. But every guy, and I want to do more on this, and Chris, I've talked about doing a video on how to pool resources, and I'm going to end on that note with Chris here because he talks about it too. But every guy that I meet who is kind of into preparedness wants land with a cabin somewhere, with a river next to national forest, and a group of friends. That it's weird. It's like, remember that thing that came out where every guy thinks about the Roman Empire every week? Try getting land somewhere with a cabin on it. Try that one. I think it's like 100% of guys want that thing. So bugging in, I think it's not, I don't like the idea of bugging in because it's my perfect plan. I think bugging in right now is my only option because I don't have anywhere else to go. So as my thought process begins to kind of branch out, I am starting to have those conversations with people, starting that planning, starting that resource allocation to make that happen. But right now, I'm kind of stuck. It's my only option. It is my best option because I don't have other options. So does that make me a bad I don't think it makes me a bad prepper. I just think I'm kind of early in my prepping journey. Chris seems to be further along that scale of planning and execution. Like, they have put it into place. There's a location, a group of people, which is great, which is really awesome. And it is the goal, but I'm not here because of, am I denying, also let me address this. Am I in denial that a collapse may happen? Maybe. Like, you're right about this, Chris, that I have no option but to think and hope that a total collapse won't happen because I'm not prepared for it. That's true. I'm in the am I in the 68%, and now I have a channel about the 68%? Am I here because I don't want to believe that maybe? Does part of me still believe it? Yeah, a little bit. But I end up settling back down into the 68%. So, okay. But yes, you're kind of right about that. But part of it is I don't have the choice to not bug in. Is it fear, denial? A little bit, probably. But I don't have those other options yet. I'm working towards them. And I wanted to take the time too to say that in Chris's video, he is very clear about him being a collapse prepper. So I wrote down some terminology that he used that is clearly puts what he's talking about way on the far end of this scale. So this is kind of all the stuff on the one scale. The TOTC, that's the 68%ers, the turd on the carpet, right? Where these situations tend to be slow, they're bad, but they're probably local and short term. SHTF, as we have previously defined, can happen quickly. It's severe. It's kind of everywhere, maybe a whole region, and it tends to be longer term, right? This is what most people kind of describe when they talk about SHTF. Well, Chris is, in my opinion, way more over here, TOTC, right? And I could have wrote collapse here, but I probably should have wrote collapse. Because the things that Chris is describing seem to fall into that. It's probably instant, very, very quick, right? It is the worst ever in terms of severity. It's probably global, and it's probably going to be forever. I don't know if he would agree with those 4 things, but I feel like he's definitely a little bit past the way everybody else talks about SHTF. And I'll give you some examples why I think that. So here's some phrases that he used. He says, collapse is real, and it's inevitable, and most likely soon. That's collapse. That's far end of the scale, right? He talks about a post-collapse, grid down, lawless, and resource poor to describe the cities. Complete and total end of civilization, the end of all, and it's coming soon. This is pretty, to me, Chris, that sounds like traditional. That's what I'm used to hearing about why preppers collapse. That's where doomsday preppers kind of comes from, right? To me, that's more the traditional line, so that's what I feel like I'm kind of bucking against. But I appreciate your awareness and honesty that this is where you're at. And yeah, so this is where he's at. And I don't think that this contradicts this. I'm more over here, right, on TOTC. This is where I spend most of my time and thought and video and philosophy. Chris is clearly way over here. I don't think those two things oppose each other. I just think they're at different spots on the bell curve, right? I think broken down car, local, something short term is in here. And I think Chris's scenario is probably out here, the end of everything all at once, really like truly Book of Eli, type of stuff. So that's where he's coming from. So it doesn't surprise me that when he looks at some of the stuff that, like my video on prepping and bugging out, he's like, well, what about this, Mike? What about this? What about this? Yes. And again, I am not anti-SHTF prepping for that. One guy accused me in my comments. He's like, you're clearly against prepping. No, I'm not. I think this is probably 80% of what we should prepare for. This is maybe 15%. You could use 80-20 rule, right? And this is probably 5%. Maybe Chris would make the argument, well, if you do this, you'll be covered for the rest of this. Maybe. I think most likely is this. But if this comes, man, that's tough. Okay, so that I wanted to make that clear too. Like his use of terminology clearly puts him at the far end of that scale, right? Far away from TOTC. But I don't think they oppose. It's not one or the other. I do think it's two sides of the same coin. He did say, what you need is a place, people. I added a third P, Chris. I hope you don't mind. And a plan. I added a plan because you kind of refer to that several times. I like things in threes, so 3 Ps is perfect. A place, people, and a plan to be successful in a collapse situation. And I absolutely agree with that. The reason I'm in the 68% is because currently I don't have a place. Currently, I'm working on the people. I have ideas, but I don't have a plan. That's why I'm in the 68%. But I would like to move over there. I'm working on getting a place. I'm working on getting the people. And I am thinking through and discussing with my wife and family the plan, right? I have a good friend of mine who, during COVID, he was pretty sure, he was a successful businessman here locally, and he was pretty sure that was it. Like as soon as the lockdowns came and everything, he sold his house, he sold his business, and he sold his lake house. And with all that money, he bought a completely off-grid home in Montana on 80 acres. I think on 80 acres. And he moved, boom. Within like 2 months, he did all of that. So like in your video, you say, if you're already there, you're not bugging out anywhere. You've already done it. You bugged out years ago. My friend is a great example of that. And I was so admirable because I was like, dude, within 2 months, he had like $2 million in assets, and it allowed him to shift and gave him some options. And he moved off grid. And now he's over there doing a business in the meantime, waiting for something worse to happen. Was it preemptive? I don't think so. He's glad he made the move. But yeah, that is the goal. You need a place, you need people, and you need a plan. And I absolutely agree with him. But here's the key, Chris. Here's the key. When you said you need people, you need a place, you need people to be successful, then you said, until then, there are ways that you can take action to increase and to give you the best odds of survival. That phrase perfectly describes the 68%. So until, and I'll speak for myself, I think I can kind of speak for the 68%. Until I get the place, until I get the people, and until I have the plan, I am doing my best with what I have until then to take action and increase my odds of survival. So again, friend, you perfectly described the 68% at the end of your video. We're just not there yet. We're just not there yet. So then let me say this. You also talk about pooling resources, which I think a lot more needs to come out about this. So what I described earlier, every guy I meet wants the same thing, but none of us can afford it. You seem to have executed, and I haven't watched the videos on this, you seem to have executed a plan where you, in some way, form, or fashion, have joined in with other people to make that retreat property possible. That is valuable. I think that's what people need to hear. I don't have $1 million to buy a house somewhere on 80 acres, but maybe I have 100 grand, and then you have 100 grand, and then you have 100 grand, and then you, whatever that looks like, whatever it's called. I was going to try and do some content on that, but maybe we should team up and talk about that, where you can help inform the community on how they can make that happen too. I think that is the way forward. A decentralization of ownership. Obviously, you'd have to pick the right people, and the financial structure would have to be good and all that, but I think that's the way it's going to happen, because we can't afford to do it all on our own. And again, you need people to do that anyway, right? So anyway, more to come. I hope we can collaborate on those ideas and do some and have some serious discussions about how every guy wants the same thing, but none of us can afford it. There has to be a solution to that. There has to be, like a timeshare, or like a retreat survivalist timeshare. I don't know. Also, at the end of your video, I feel like you pretty much invited me to join your group. I feel, and others, go watch that video, and you tell him in his comments, be like, you clearly invited Mike to join your group. So I don't want to live in the Southwest, but maybe we can have a satellite group up here, right? Something, I don't know. But thank you for the invitation, and I haven't talked to my wife, but I accept. Okay, so if you have a patch, or like I need to get like a tattoo or something, I'll do that. And then we'll be complete, right? If I have the 68%, then you have the 27%, the 5%, maybe then we'll have a complete spectrum of good planning. And then this is the last thing I'll say. Again, I appreciate you, man. I appreciate you appreciating my channel and my content. Same thing back at you, ditto. There's one thing that I think probably might be a problem with collaboration and moving forward, or like a clash of ideas. I watched your bug out bag video, which was really great. It was really good. Some super well thought out items in there. Like the phone you had with the downloaded maps wrapped in the sealed thing, like a Faraday, just specifically for that thing, and then all the cache, and really great bug out. Or yeah, it was a bug out video to get to your retreat location, and you're out there in the wild, in the desert, practicing with it. There's one part though, this is probably the biggest problem I have with you and your content, and it was one part in that video where you forgot to talk about your fixed blade knife, and you pulled out, I think it was a Cold Steel SRK. So you cut a clip into that video where you're talking about your fixed blade, and then in that clip, you're wearing an Affliction shirt. Like the Affliction shirts from 1997. I don't know if I can get past that. I don't know if I could hang out with you if you're wearing that shirt. So anyway, maybe we can talk about it. We can get some therapy from a third-party prepper, and we can talk through those issues. But other than that, man, I think you got a great thing going on there. I'm gonna do my best to link your videos and your channel in this video, but I'm not very capable about doing that yet. So I'm just saying it again. Wasteland by Wednesday. A gentleman named Chris, really great channel, really great videos. And I appreciate you watching me, Chris, and responding, and this is good. This is good. Maybe we can do a live or something and collaborate moving forward. So all my viewers, please go check out his stuff. Throw him some subscriptions and some comments, and do him some justice over there, because he's got a really good thing going on. So, all right, exactly at 30 minutes. I appreciate you all, and this is Mike Tango Whiskey. I'm all clear.